have to say, Larry, this is a real treat. I always enjoy our chats, and we are going completely off the cuff today, so I can't wait to see where this goes. You talk to sellers all the time. What is at the pulse of sellers today? What's near and dear to their hearts?
Oh, there's a lot. I think it's bringing certainty to all the uncertainty that's been going on. Is that the first thing that comes to mind? Is what's next year going to hold? Where am I going to be? What do I need to do? And the only reason I bring this up, and it's just so near and dear to me, is my business coach, just a tip of the cap to Dave Sanderson. He talks to us about this all the time because Daryl and I we share Dave. And he's just been a tremendous wealth of help and all that. But he talks about bringing certainty to an uncertain world. And I think there's a lot we can play on this, but I think the big thing is we can control, we can't control, we can't control. I think we can, as sellers, we can bring certainty because we control what we can do. Yeah. However, I think what's been happening is, we're not going to say all sellers, but many sellers have allowed the outside to affect what they do. Which then gets into all the negative thinking and so forth. So I'd say the biggest thing is this is bring some certainty to an uncertain selling world.
Love that. I think you're exactly right. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get sucked into the minutia. It's easy to get sucked into the negativity. I mean, obviously, anytime you turn on the news and there's all of this uncertainty in the world, it's very challenging to keep your eye on the prize and stay focused. And as sellers, we've often got to develop this comfort in ambiguity, comfort in discomfort. I love that you said that element about controlling what you can. I've always been told, control the controllables. That was a key thing that I picked up about a decade ago from a manager that I had at a prior organization. And I've always tried to focus on that. I'm a big believer, as I know you are, in people and process and probability. And I feel like, and we could probably go on with sports analogies as well, because I know we're big sports buffs. Sure. But, think about batting averages for a second. And when you're going out there and you're having, let's say you're a 250 hitter, what are the things that you can do that enhance your batting average? If you focus on the things you can control, when you're in a slump, you don't drastically change your swing. You don't start changing the things that got you to the pros. You've got to make sure you're relying on the fundamentals. And these are things that we can control. And the last thing I'd say on that topic would be something. There's a line, a clip in one of my favorite films of all time, which is For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. Uh-huh. And every time he stands up on the mound and he says, "Clear the mechanism." And it's like the fans just all are shut out. And he stays focused on what he has to do, which is his fundamentals. It's his windup, his pitch, his delivery, and his moment in the game. And I think that's what we as sellers have to do, because the playing field has changed, undoubtedly. There's new technology. Our customers have brand new needs that they've never had before. They have to accelerate transformation and shift their business model in ways that they may have never foreseen. We've got to meet them where they are in order to be trusted advisors and to earn our seat at the table.
No, it's so spot on. I want to key in, if you'll allow me, I want to go back to something you just said about a minute ago, and it's the fundamentals and the basics. And here's what I want us to really understand out there, regardless of what stage you're at in sales, is, and again, this is my opinion and so forth, but if we struggle to do the basics in sales, we're going to struggle to do the more difficult things in sales. And we all can find difficulties as however we want to define those. But let's just stop and think about this for a moment. Are you making the basics in sales non-negotiable? And, you brought up a sports analogy. I'm going to bring up another one. If you ever listen to a professional sports athlete, right? And if they're in a slump, they always say, "I'm going back to the basics." Every single day, if you follow, right, I'm going to drop Steph Curry just for a moment, right, from the Golden State Warriors. If you ever watch that guy's pregame basketball ritual, The guy's dribbling with one hand, one ball. Then he brings two balls in and he's dribbling and he goes through the same thing. The only reason I know this is because I was watching something on ESPN not too long ago about him. Here's what I want us to think about in sales. And it goes back to creating that certainty and controlling the things. We can control what we can control. The thing is how many of us are doing the basics day in and day out? Are we consistent? Do we have the discipline? Are we doing the things every single day that we know that we're supposed to be doing in order to achieve that level of success? And that's what I'm concerned with. And I'm not saying all sellers, because there's a lot of great sellers out there that are doing great things on a consistent basis. But I want us to really focus in and I remember my mother-in-law telling me this like decades and decades ago. And she said, if you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And then she went on to say this, and she goes, don't ever half-ass what you do. Let's just stop and think about some of this for a moment. If you want to push into like 2022, I would encourage a lot of salespeople out there and sales leaders, veer back onto course and start doubling down on the basics and watch what starts to happen to your level of success in 2022.
If we struggle with the basics, we're going to struggle with the bigger things. I remember when I first got promoted to sales management a long time ago. I'm not going to date myself here, but my team would always ask me, Larry, they'd be, I'm really struggling with overcoming objections. I'm just, I'm getting shut down with, we don't need this or X, Y, Z. And when you go in and you try to uncover this, or let's say you listen to calls with them, you understood right away what the issue was. The foundation wasn't set. There was no needs analysis whatsoever. They had done no research on the client. So they had no real ability to convince them of a need to change. They didn't understand. They had not plugged in with the customer. And when you talk about non-negotiables, I love that phrase, because non-negotiables, those can and should be broken down even on a daily basis. Every day when I wake up, or even the night before, I make my list of the non-negotiables for that day. Because let's face it, it's so easy as a seller, or anybody for that matter, to be pulled in so many different directions. I'll get hundreds of emails. I get a lot of different types of outreach and calls. There's things that pop up. There's fires that have to be put out. But if I don't get those non-negotiables done, then I'm really lost. And I'll be honest with you, there are days where I feel like I've been bombarded by a lot of the things that have popped up throughout the day, but I got my non-negotiables done and I felt like job well done. I love that you brought up some great athletes like Steph Curry. I was always a big fan of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, people that pride themselves in being a student of the game. And I think, to your point, a lot of times, Larry, we've got to take a step back and we've got to look holistically at the playing field. Understand the people, the players, what's the playing field look like, what resources are at my disposal. And this is what we're all going to be doing here in just a matter of weeks. We're going to have to look at a brand new year, and we're going to have to understand, what's the lay of the land look like? How do I get to my number for this year? And you're not going to be able to do that unless you understand the relationships that you're going to need to create in order to get these deals done. You're not going to get there unless you understand all the resources that are at your disposal to get these deals done. And you're going to have to plot out the milestones. There are very specific, intentional things that you're going to have to do between here and December or July or whenever your fiscal year ends in order to get the things done that you claim that you want to do. And that's why you need daily non-negotiables, even on the days you don't want to. I think that's what really defines the mark of a great seller is, look, we've all been through the events of the last couple of years. There's been days where I got up and I didn't want to do it, but it's a conscious decision, clear the mechanism and go execute.
Yeah, and it's why in Selling from the Heart, I talk all the time about the difference between a sales rep and a sales professional. And I want to say, I'm not here to disrespect the sales world by no means. However, there's a huge difference, right? You refer to them as sellers, I'll say sales rep, sales professional. And I'll just keep it really simple. I go, sales professionals do the things that sales reps find excuses for. Plain and simple. So as we start looking out into 2022, I'm a big believer. You brought up relationships. I'm a high relationship person. Here's what I would encourage sales professionals and sales leaders out there as you're looking into 2022 is look at the relationships that your salespeople have with their clients. Now look at the relationship you have with your salespeople. And I'm a big believer in this, and I'm going to really key in on sales leaders for a moment on this one. If you want your sales professionals to have genuine, authentic relationships with your clients, then I'm going to ask you, what's that genuine, authentic relationship look like right now between sales leaders and sales professionals? And let's stop and think about that for a moment. I believe that as sales leaders and sales professionals in 2022, you got a wealth of gold sitting right in front of you. That's your current clients. Here's what I'd like everyone to think about. Are you building authentic relationships and bringing meaningful value to your clients? Now, as a sales leader, the same can be said for you. Are you bringing authentic relationships and meaningful value to your salespeople? If the answer is I don't know or no, then think about how that translates out into the sales world with how your salespeople are taking care of your clients.
So I've always been a firm believer in the value in investing across the sales food chain. So your customer, the folks that touch the customer, that can be the SDR, it can be the sales professional. Then you've got layers of management, extended teams, partners. And you hit on something that's really important because a lot of people, Larry, they'll ask or they'll even make a comment on the sales culture of an organization. They'll say something along the lines of their sales culture needs to be strengthened, or, we're not doing well at sales. That'll be a general broad statement. Well, where does that all begin? Where does a sales culture, a great, thriving, humming sales culture begin? It begins at the top. It's got to be an investment that is made. And here's the other element too. It isn't about showing your sellers how to do their job. It's about investing in them. It's about empowering them. It's about showing them and illuminating best practices, fostering an environment of collaboration. I didn't get to be a great seller because I went out and just did trial and error, or because of some, training that I took, or because of one particular book that I've read through the journey. It's a sum of the parts. It's many brushstrokes of a masterpiece that we're focusing on. Conversations with you, that could be one. Reading, listening to podcasts. But I think what we're looking for in our sales leaders is that show me how I can get better, give me some of the tips, and then let me go out and work my process. I've had a lot of success as a sales leader because I've been able to say, hey, these are the resources that are at your disposal. These are things that I've done historically that have been valuable to me, that help me be successful. I'm available. I'm here. If you want to sit and strategize, you want to brainstorm, you've got a blocker. Great leaders remove legitimate barriers to success. And there's a reason that I word it that way, because it's not about excuses. Yeah. A lot of sellers give excuses, or sales reps give excuses. I'm not here to deal with excuses. If you're going to give excuses, that's where you're going to drown ultimately. But if you bring legitimate barriers to success, I'll sit all day with you and figure out how are we going to break down this barrier, go over this barrier, go around this barrier. And I think that's the key element, finding ways to engage. I love that you brought that up. So my question to you, Larry, would be, as we're heading into this next year, and in the theme of what we've talked about today with all the uncertainty, how can sales leaders today best be preparing their team for the uncertainty, not only right now, but into the future. We don't know what hybrid work is going to look like. We don't know which customers are going to want to meet in person, which are going to want to meet in virtual settings, how companies are going to endorse a hybrid work remote setting. I'm curious, how can sales leaders best prepare themselves mentally and their teams right now for what's to come?
A couple different things, and I'm gonna throw a couple terms out because they're just near and dear to me. It's the people skills and the relationship building skills, and I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's a lot that we can unpack in there, but those are the first two things that come to mind for one simple reason is I've had enough conversations over the last 6 months of this year, Carson, with sales leaders, sales enablement leaders on what have they learned, strengths and weaknesses of their team. What are you really looking at as you roll into 2022? And here are the things that I'm starting to uncover. And it goes something like this. We do a really great job with our salespeople in terms of product training and sales skill training. We do really well at that. But where we're really starting to see the holes and the red flags and things that we can be doing better at, people skills and relationship building skills, conversational skills, collaboration skills, connection skills. I think a lot of times as sales leaders, we assume that as sales people, we already understand how to build these relationships and we have these people skills. I'm here to share with you that we can really improve upon those. And if there's anything that I've encouraged sales leaders as we roll into 2022 that you can work with your sales team on to help them become better, is bring the people skills to the forefront. How can I build deep, meaningful relationships, not only with my salespeople, but how can they build those relationships with our clients? And I'm a big believer as sales leaders, we got to lean into our salespeople. And when I say lean in, I'll use a phrase that I often use in selling from the heart is, and this is really aimed at sales leaders, Carson, is those leaders that lead with their heart will soon develop a sales team that goes out and sells from the heart. And I'm a big Craig Rochelle fan. I just love everything about Craig Rochelle. I've read his books. I watch his Sunday message every single Sunday. I listen to his leadership podcast. And one of the things, there's two I's that he always talks about with leadership. And I'd encourage sales leaders to really, really hone in on this with your sales team in 2022 is what impact are you making with your salespeople and what influence are you having with your salespeople?
It's all about investing in people.
It's all about investing in people. The more you pour into your people, the more you lean into your people, the more you show your salespeople that you give a rip and you care about them. And this isn't, I have no PhD in any of this, Carson, none whatsoever. It's just, I think oftentimes I'm a big Steve Harvey fan. And I just love everything about Steve Harvey. I just think he's funny. He's just absolutely super funny. Highly religious guy, great backstory, right? He didn't come from a family that fed him everything with the golden spoon, right? I mean, if anyone knows anything about Steve Harvey, that guy worked his you-know-what off to get to where he's at. He's got an amazing backstory. And I remember watching a YouTube video. This will all play out here in a second. Just hang tight with me on this. But I remember watching a video. It was about a 10-minute video on YouTube. And I was watching this about 3 years ago. And he was talking about a gift, right? He goes, at birth, everyone's been given a gift. It's up to us to uncover what that gift is. And he goes on to say a gift is something that comes easy and natural to you. Now, Steve Harvey, he firmly believes his gift, he was given the gift of being funny because he says you don't go to school to be funny. You're either funny or you're not funny. Now, why am I saying all of this? This is really geared towards leaders and salespeople, is we all have a gift. We got to really look deep inside of who we are to uncover what that gift is. I uncovered what my gift was a while ago. Actually, it started to come to surface while I was watching that Steve Harvey video. Mine is how I bring my heart to the forefront, how I connect and relate to people. And I lean into people and I love pouring into people. That's my gift. It comes easy and natural to me. It doesn't for some people, and that's okay. But here's what I'd ask sales leaders and salespeople to look at, especially as we may have some downtime around the holidays, is spend some alone time and really look at yourself in the mirror and reflect and say, really try to uncover what that gift is. Now, if you're a sales leader, maybe you'll unpack what that gift is and you'll pour yourself into your people in 2022. Now, if you're a sales individual, a sales professional out there, maybe what you'll pour yourself into is yourself. There's two words that are just really near and dear to me. It's connect and relate. As sales leaders in 2022, how well are you going to connect and relate to your salespeople? As salespeople, how well are you going to connect and relate to yourself? Now, if we peel this back one more layer, why is this all important? Sales leaders, if you struggle to connect and relate to your salespeople, it's going to come to the surface really quick. Salespeople, if you struggle to connect and relate with yourself, I promise you this, mark my word, you will struggle to connect and relate to your clients. You want your clients to open up to you as salespeople? Learn how to connect and relate to them. Make them feel comfortable. Sales leaders, you want your salespeople to grow? Connect and relate to them. Learn something about them. This all ties together. This isn't PhD level stuff. This isn't rocket science level stuff. This is just human stuff. This is just how we all connect. But we make this so difficult in sales. And this is why I'm a big believer that in 2022, if we can bridge personal and professional together, watch what starts to happen. Here's my challenge. If we can all do this in our personal lives, what prevents us from doing this in our professional life? We got to remove the barrier. We have to remove the barrier if you want to see growth. As sales leaders, if you want to see growth with your salespeople, give a rip about them. Look at them as humans as opposed to revenue generating people, and watch what starts to happen. Salespeople, you want to connect and relate to your clients? Look at them as humans and not a means to quota.
Larry, I knew this conversation was going to be magical, and you've exceeded expectations as usual. But, it all starts with, like you said, you've got to understand your sellers and your team. You've got to understand their why, what's their motivation. And it comes back to what you were just saying. What is their superpower? What is that unique superpower that they do so well that they bring to the table that you can replicate? And we all have to find that in ourselves as well. I think the key element for me, because I've been in a lot of different industries, been in a lot of different selling environments, but I've always been a connector. I've always tried to build a community around what I was doing. And it's worked, even though I'm just a sales guy. I have really no business necessarily being in one industry over another or one field over another. But if you apply those fundamentals and you leverage your superpower in a way that it delivers wins to the people that you touch, that's colleagues, that's partners, that's customers, that's how you win as a direct result of that. It's great because, years ago, I worked in an environment where I had a colleague, we were both management peers, and they were trying always to discipline, write up, and terminate their bottom folks on their team, right? Their bottom 20%, bottom 30%. And on the flip side, I was always trying to coach and develop, take everybody and mostly move the middle, but try to get everybody just to amplify their performance. And I won't, I'll spoil the story here. my team always came out ahead and my colleague could never understand why. But it was because my people believed in me. They knew I had their back. And I was trying to get them where they wanted to be in their career. Flash forward to today, I have a team of very seasoned professionals. And, on paper, I mean, you look at it and like, there's not a lot that I can add to their acumen in some ways. But what I can do is I can be their evangelist. I can be their advocate. I can get them promoted. And I can also find ways that they can take the things that they do very well. I can amplify that. I can evangelize that. I can help them replicate their successes to equate to wins for others. When you maximize and you optimize your potential and, those types of elements, that's what really takes you to another level. That's what makes you the obvious choice for the promotion you seek. That's what is ultimately going to create a brand that transcends your role. I tell people all the time, don't confine yourself to the box that is your title. Think about what you want to do and what you feel you can do and where you can deliver wins to other people. That's what's going to make you ultimately feel successful. And lastly, be a person. Find out what these folks care about. I still talk to customers. I still prospect right with my team. I spend time in the field. I gifted myself last year Sales Management Simplified by our mutual friend, Mike Weinberg. And when I was rereading that magnificent text, and he just talks about being there, being out in the field, being a part of the solution, the strategy, just being present. And if you do that and you invest that time in your team, they're going to believe in you. But I still talk to customers all the time, and I go in armed with enough research, something personal that I can try to develop a conversation with. I had a conversation last week with a C-level executive who is in his own band, sent me some of his music, and we were showing each other guitars. And that's how we spent the preponderance of the time. But you better believe we'll talk again. And that's what it's really all about. People say all the time, it's not business, it's personal. But they don't realize, or maybe they take for granted, just how personal business can be.
Oh, dude, this is so golden. And I love what you just said, because how many times in sales, right? So for all the salespeople that are watching this, and sales leaders, that's just keying on the business and the personal for a moment, because this has all happened to us. Spend any amount of time in sales, and you're bound to hear this, Carson. I'm just going to use you as the example because it's you and I, having this conversation. But how many times have we heard this? Hey, Carson, right? I don't want you to take this personal. We decided to take our business to XYZ company. We decided to do business with somebody else. Please don't take it personal. It was only a business decision. Well, guess what, folks? Business is personal. I'm here to tell you, the more personal you make it, the better off you will be. Mark my word. Now, there's some people that are going to cast a big, right? And they may throw a middle finger up at me, or they may say some nasty words, but that's okay, right? However, the more personal you can make business, watch what starts to happen. And here's why I say this. And I spent almost 30 years in corporate sales in LA in the office technology space. And I sold into medium-sized businesses, small businesses. I sold into large corporate, global-sized companies in the LA marketplace. And I saw it unfold in front of my very eyes. The more comfortable I made somebody feel, about me, the sooner they became comfortable enough that they would start sharing things that were going on in their company they weren't sharing with somebody else.
You know why? Because you de-risked everything to them.
I did. And here's the key behind it. You as salespeople, keying on this, you must be willing to go first. I would open up, right? I mean, I kept the boundaries and all that around it, and that's just get real about it, right? I'm not gonna like open up the kimono in the closet and share something, right? That's gonna come back. However, I'm gonna share something personal, just personal enough that they go, you know what? I can relate to that. And then sooner or later, they start opening up and they start sharing personal things about themselves. And watch what starts to happen to that business conversation. And here's This is why I say this is I'm a big believer that a lot of sales, but I'm not going to say all, but there's a vast majority of salespeople that are conversationally incompetent, Carson. They are so trained that when I have that conversation with Carson, it's got to be sales centric, product centric, and so forth. You want to connect and relate to somebody at a C-level, mid-level executive. It's not going to be around sales or product centric conversations in the very beginning. It's going to be around humanistic type, real world, personal type conversations. However, you must be comfortable enough with the triggers to transfer that to a business conversation, or all you guys are going to get caught in the friend zone.
So powerful, Larry. I couldn't agree more. You've got to de-risk the situation by bringing that guard down. And it isn't about, to your point, the products, the solutions. In fact, you shouldn't even be bringing up products and solutions out of the gate. Your goal is to understand them, what could look like a win to them, what are some of the priorities, maybe the pain points. I love to find out, what do they like about my competition? Because there's probably some things that the competition doesn't do as well as my organization. And then owning, being candid, but owning, the state of potentially the weaknesses that my product or solution has or has had historically, whatever that looks like. People choose these things for very personal reasons. And I'm not looking to unpack everything, every decision that they've ever made and try to shoot holes in it. I'm really just looking to be a value or a resource. Maybe I know someone that I can introduce them to. I've even introduced my competition before because I had a friend that worked at this organization and it made sense to do so. Hey, you're having an issue there? I know somebody over there. Let me put you guys together. Whatever that is, you want to be there, be present. Just like with your sales team, you're making a deposit in a new relationship.
Oh, so good. I love these conversations because I never know where they're going to go with you, Carson. But here's something that's interesting. I'll give sales leaders and sales professionals a tip out there. If you ever want to get engaged, really great conversation with executives. We know that executives are visionary people. They're looking at things a year out, 2 years out, 3 years out. I'm a big believer in this. Executives cast vision. They're leaders. Sales professionals are leaders as well. Here's what I'm going to challenge everyone to think about. What's your individual vision? What's the vision? Where do you see business? Right? Where do you see a business world? Sales leaders, I'd say the same thing. If you ever want to get engaged in the very first in type meeting and a conversation with an executive, start talking visionary. It could go something like this, right? Hey, I enjoyed learning a little bit about your company as I was doing a little bit of research, and I was really drawn into your mission and vision statement. And just as your mission and vision statement is, insert in what that is. My personal vision is I see a business world where, then we can fill in the blanks there. Hey, I'm just curious. As we start this off, what's your vision? Where do you see things a year from now, 2 years from now? And stop. Be confident enough to stop and just listen and watch what starts to happen to that conversation. Be prepared just to let it go where it goes. I promise you this, in 15 minutes, you will learn so much about them, their company, where they see themselves, and where you go next, just based on asking visionary type questions and sharing your vision and understanding their vision better. It's powerful stuff, but you got to be willing to do it.
So good. Yeah. Your goal is really to find that chord that is going to get them to open up, and asking them about vision when they are paid to be a visionary. is so crucial. I think there's a key element to even just showing up with perspective. We see this as a challenge for others in your business, in your industry. I've talked to people in your organization, other influencers. This is the kind of feedback that I'm getting. Here's a perspective that we might have. What do you think? Would love to get your guidance or your feedback on this, because I think this is going to be something that we're grappling with as well. And, ultimately, you look to be collaborators and partners. We throw that partnership word around a lot, but where you can really make that word sing and hum is when you invest authentically in the relationship and go at it together.
That's so good. So good.
Well, Larry, I always appreciate our chats, and thank you for the time today. I think all sellers and sales leaders that are watching with us can have several key takeaways as they close a year and look to starting anew. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Look forward to next time.
Absolutely.